A win for President Trump. The Supreme Court upheld his travel ban targeting several Muslim-majority countries. And California joins the fight over families separated at the border. We talked to the ACLU about efforts to reunite kids with their parents.
Any person who truly understands what we do is wildly impressed and enamored with the outcomes we achieve.
It was supposed to be a breakthrough treatment for diabetes. Now it's under investigation. KPBS partner iNewsSource talks to a Montana couple who sunk their life savings into the company.
I plan on sailing commercial vessels, probably joining a union, maybe sailing on an oil tanker.
And CSU's floating classroom makes a stop in San Diego. We'll take you on board the Golden Bear. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Walsh. President Donald Trump won a major legal fight from his first days of his presidency. The U.S. Supreme Court says the president is within his authority to ban people from certain countries on the grounds of national security. The ruling fell 5-4, conservative-liberal split. This particular case involved the third version of the travel ban. Lower courts ruled all versions violated federal law. Critics of the travel ban say it amounts to a ban on Muslims. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Libya are on the list, along with North Korea and Venezuela. Here's President Trump's reaction and legal expert Dan Eden on what comes next.
We have to be tough, and we have to be safe, and we have to be secure. At a minimum, we have to make sure that we vet people coming into the country. We know who's coming in. We know where they're coming from. We just have to know who's coming here.
This happened to be a statutory grant, but there are also other broad grants of authority that the president has. You can expect that the president, having gotten this go-ahead from this United States Supreme Court, will exercise those powers with a great deal more confidence going forward.
California is one of the states suing the Trump administration. The suit demands the government reunite families separated at the border. More than 2,000 children are still in federal custody. KPBS reporter Jean Guerrero talked with the ACLU about the work to end this Trump policy.
More than 2,000 immigrant children are still separated from their parents after President Trump issued an order ending his family separation practice. What is the ACLU asking the court to do about this?
To reunify all the children with their parents, every last one of them, including those that have been deported without their children, to find ways to reunify those as well. And then to stop the practice going forward, to make it so that they can't just separate children from their parents for no reason moving forward as well. And there are deadlines that you guys are hoping the court will impose on the government? We are asking the court to move quickly. Every day of separation is very, very harmful to these children. That's the universal opinion of the medical experts. And so we've asked the court to reunify the youngest children within 10 days and then give the government 30 days to reunify the rest. The government says a court-ordered reunification process with the deadlines you requested would cause confusion and delays, and says it's already working on the reunification. Why not wait for the government to reunify these families? The government's proved anything is that we can't wait for the government. The government created this chaos. They created it in no time at all, and we can't trust the government to handle the reunification process. And that's the essential argument of the government. Trust us, we can fix this. Well, what have they done to make the court or anyone else in America believe that they have the capacity to fix this? The cruelty of the policy is matched only by the ineptitude of the way it's been implemented. The U.S. also says that the reunification may take a while because they're trying to keep the children safe. They're doing background checks and conducting house surveys before releasing the children. They mention a 2015 case where they released 8 unaccompanied minors to traffickers who forced them to work on an egg farm. What's the chance that rushing the reunification could endanger these children? We are not asking the government to release the children to anyone other than the parents they showed up with. The smokescreen that we blew it a couple times in 2015 by releasing these children to people we shouldn't have. It doesn't make any sense. What we've asked for is reunification with the parents. And so the government took these kids away. We're asking them to simply put them back where they belong, where they took them from in the first place.
Customs and Border Protection announced Monday that they're temporarily halting the zero-tolerance policy that led to these separations in the first place. Does that change anything for the ACLU on this lawsuit?
A temporary halt doesn't do what we're asking. We're asking the court to make it so that the government can never do this again. This is an atrocity. This is a human rights disaster. And the idea that we'll put a temporary halt to a human rights disaster only until ICE can have enough beds so that we can do it again doesn't affect our lawsuit in any way whatsoever.
The Trump administration says its crackdown has always been about enforcing the law. Officials say that if families had crossed the border legally, they wouldn't have been separated in the first place. But the government has been separating families at the ports of entry. In fact, this lawsuit started with one such case. Can you tell me a little bit about how this lawsuit got started?
We've encountered increasing numbers of parents who, when they tell us in detention, when they tell us their story, they say their kid was taken away. And it didn't make sense. None of it added up, and we couldn't figure it out. And the more we looked at these, we started to see that there was a policy brewing, that there was a practice happening. And we looked back on statements made and by the administration and realized there was something here. We finally interviewed Miss L, a Congolese mom who had been ripped away from her 7-year-old was ripped away from her with no explanation of why, no explanation of how they could get in touch with each other. They hadn't talked in months. And we brought a lawsuit on her behalf. We made it a class action, and we've asked the court to stop it on behalf of everyone, just like Miss L, who arrived at a port of entry as she was supposed to. She didn't violate any laws. She did exactly what our laws require of her, as well as for people who are prosecuted criminally once they finish their sentences and they go through the asylum process to reunify those parents as well.
Thank you for joining us, Brytis Vakili.
I've been very happy to be here. Thank you.
Also 5-4, the High Court ruled California can't require clinics to discuss abortion options. The 2015 law covers unlicensed pregnancy centers. It requires them to tell clients about other options, including abortion. Anti-abortion centers argued the law limits their freedom of speech. The justices agreed and ordered the case back to the lower courts.
I think there is no doubt that the election of Donald Trump and this new justice has made it much more difficult for women to get the care that they need, the honesty they need, and the truth that they need from the people that they trust the most when they are in a crisis.
The NewsHour will have extensive coverage on tonight on the Supreme Court's rulings and the president's family separation policy. It airs tonight at 7 o'clock here on KPBS. The largest budget ever for San Diego County was unanimously approved today by the Board of Supervisors. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has the details.
The county's budget for the coming year checks in at nearly $6.3 billion. That's almost a $500 million increase from last year. This budget has additional money for the Sheriff's Department and County Fire Authority. There's also an increase of over $125 million for drug, mental health, and homeless prevention programs. That includes a pilot program that will have healthcare workers instead of police assisting people who are homeless.
The jails have become the de facto mental health facility in California. We got to change that dynamic, and we're going to be hiring a lot more clinicians and professional people, and we're going to see if we can reduce the number of people shouldn't be in the jails because they're mentally ill.
Now, that being said, the budget does call for more staff at detention facilities to help provide round-the-clock mental health care. There's also $25 million being set aside to help build more affordable housing. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
iNewsSource is looking into a Sacramento company which offers what they say is a miraculous diabetes treatment. The trail led reporter Cheryl Clark to rural Montana, where a couple sunk their life savings into one of these clinics.
Dillon is a small rural town of about 4,000 people in southwestern Montana's Beaverhead Valley. Here, everyone knows everyone, including Ron and Julie Briggs. 4 years ago, Ron, the county coroner, was ready to give up on his longtime fight with diabetes. We spoke with them in December.
I've been a diabetic for 55 years. I have heard from everybody under the sun, everybody's got a cure for diabetes.
His diabetes was so severe, he often landed in the local hospital in a diabetic coma. But Ron's wife, Julie, would not give up hope.
And I thought, you know, we've worked really hard, and I don't want my husband to die now.
At a particularly low point in 2014, Julie started searching online for diabetes treatments. She discovered a national network of clinics called Trina Health. It was founded by Sacramento lawyer G. Ford Gilbert, who said he had developed a miraculous procedure to treat diabetes.
When you have extra insulin,
Gilbert insisted in a February interview with us that his treatment stops, even reverses, the complications of diabetes. Here's how he explained the results.
you get your brain functionality back. You get eye functionality back. You get kidney functionality back. You resolve unhealing wounds that have been unhealing and weeping for years.
The 4-hour procedure involves infusing insulin into a patient's bloodstream through an IV. Gilbert said the infusions, as shown in this Trina video, help patients better metabolize carbohydrates, and that restores their health.
Any person who truly understands what we do is wildly impressed and enamored with the outcomes we achieve.
But many in the medical community are not convinced. Dr. John Buse, a former president of the American Diabetes Association, was blunt in his criticism of Trina when he spoke with us.
The pitch was pretty slick and compelling, whereas the evidence that I could find was pretty much non-existent.
In 2016, at the request of a potential Trina investor, Buse spent hours reviewing Gilbert's materials.
You know, I would sort of characterize it more on the scam end of the spectrum of business opportunities.
Medicare and at least one major insurance company say they have found no sufficient evidence that the Trina treatments actually benefit patients, so they won't pay for them. But Gilbert had a workaround. Instead of billing the Trina treatments as one all-inclusive claim, his company submitted claims for each of the services separately. Ron Briggs began receiving Trina treatments in 2014. He and his wife thought they found an answer, if only for a while.
I found something that would help with my situation. And it wasn't I thought would help, I knew would help.
Ron traveled every week to a clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona to get the infusions.
After the 4th time, Ron called me up on the phone and he said, I don't know what we're going to do, but I have to do this the rest of my life.
So Ron and Julie rallied support in Dillon to open their own clinic. They said they paid Ford Gilbert about $300,000 for fees and equipment. The couple tried to persuade Dillon's local hospital and its doctors to oversee it, including Dr. Sandra McIntyre.
And part of that conversation was, would one of you in this organization be the medical director if the Briggs chose to move forward? And we pretty much said the same thing, which is why would we be medical directors over a service that we don't think has scientific merit?
The doctors recommended the hospital not get involved. McIntyre said when patients like Ron have a chronic disease, they look for anything they think will make them feel better.
And when someone offers something that really is painless, essentially, and cost-free to you, with this promise of a miracle, it hooks patients. It hooks them.
Without the support of hospital doctors, Ron and Julie opened their clinic anyway in 2015. They hired nurses to perform the insulin infusions and treated as many as 15 patients. 2 of those patients said Trina was miraculous and even extended their lives. But not all thought their health improved. Some, like Ruby Monty, suffered severe side effects from the treatment process.
It was more than severe diarrhea, and I just couldn't handle it. I was getting dehydrated, and I'd come home and my husband would tell me that I just looked washed out.
Over the past 5 years, more than 24 Trina clinics have opened in 17 states. But by early 2017, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana was questioning the Dillon Clinic's reimbursement claims, and the private insurer and federal authorities were investigating Gilbert's billing practices. Gilbert told us he did nothing wrong.
There's no fraud. There's nobody a bad actor here.
But Blue Cross Blue Shield had already been refusing to cover Trina treatments in Alabama. Eventually, the insurance companies stopped payments in Montana. That decision led Ron and Julie to close their clinic.
I've invested $750,000 in this whole thing. we were told the insurance companies were in line.
You see on TV, you see all of these things about this medication. If you take this medication, your legs are going to fall off and your arms are going to fall off and your nose is going to turn blue and it's going to kill you. And the insurance companies are covering all of that. But something that helps and has saved my husband's life, they don't even want to look at.
But Ron's life wasn't saved. In late December, he told his wife he didn't think he'd last the night. He wound up in a hospital with kidney failure, heart disease, and a blood clot, all possibly related to his diabetes. Days later, Ron died. When we spoke with Gilbert weeks later, he remained committed to expanding his network of clinics.
We will achieve remedial treatment for hundreds of millions of people. And I say that without a worry in this world.
But last month, Gilbert was arrested on federal public corruption charges in Alabama. He is accused of fraud and bribery in a failed scheme prosecutors say was intended to get a state law passed to force coverage of Trina infusions.
And very adamantly and respectfully pleaded not guilty.
A state legislator and lobbyist were also arrested. All three have denied the charges and await trial. The clinic in Dillon remains closed. So are clinics in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and California. Others have shut down their websites or stripped away the name Trina. But some clinics continue to offer the unproven Trina treatment and to advertise that insurance and Medicare are covering it. How long that will continue is unknown. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Cheryl Clark.
This iNewsSource story was first aired on PBS NewsHour. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. For months, HiCaliber Horse Rescue has faced allegations of fraud and poor medical practices. iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino tells us why the nonprofit in Valley Center says it will close voluntarily on Saturday.
On February 28th, iNewsSource broke the story that local and state agencies were investigating allegations of animal abuse, fraud, and improper veterinary practices at HiCaliber. Less than a week later, the California Attorney General's office halted the nonprofit's fundraising, and 3 former HiCaliber board members came forward to distance themselves from the organization's finances. Then, a group of volunteers disclosed an outbreak of a dangerous and highly contagious equine disease at the ranch that was being kept under wraps. A week later, iNewsSource uncovered that Michelle Natilla, HiCaliber's founder and spokeswoman, had spent thousands of donor dollars on late-night fast food, payments to Weight Watchers, spy technology, and other questionable expenses. Our stories continued through the rest of March and April. At one point, there were more than a dozen government agencies investigating. In April, HiCaliber announced it would soon close its doors. This month, on Facebook, the Horse Rescue set a closing date, June 30th. Michelle Natilla stopped responding to my requests for interviews long ago, but her attorney, Sean Jones, has been forthcoming. He said Monday that some HiCaliber donors have shown interest in funding the nonprofit's relocation to a new property to continue operations, but there's nothing firm. For now, he said, HiCaliber is focused on clearing up issues with government agencies in case the group finds a way to continue operating. It's also placing as many horses as possible, though he doubts the remaining 60 or so horses will be placed by this Saturday. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino.
San Diego Unified School District lost out on federal funding for homeless students last month because of a missing signature on a grant application. Our partner iNewsSource reports State Senator Tony Atkins helped secure the lost $250,000. It's part of a bill the governor is expected to sign tomorrow. The San Ysidro School District is taking action against 2 former administrators after an audit found they potentially misused district funds. iNewsSource reporter Leonardo Castaneda has the details.
San Ysidro's former superintendent and his deputy were overpaid almost $207,000 in life insurance, according to a state audit released this month. Now, the district wants that money back. San Ysidro's new superintendent, Gina Potter, said the district has frozen the life insurance accounts for the 2 former administrators. It's one step towards getting that money, or what's left of it, back into the district. Potter announced the move in a letter released Monday. In it, she said, "I am committed to creating the highest level of leadership, systems, and support to best serve our community, and understand that process starts with the superintendent and the board." Potter said San Ysidro is also considering ways to recover other overpayments the audit identified. That includes more than $103,000 in vacation days paid to former Superintendent Julio Fonseca and his deputy, Jose Arturo Sanchez Macias. Neither of the former administrators responded to a request by iNewsSource for comment. Previously, Sanchez Macias and Fonseca's lawyer told iNewsSource that they disputed the audit's findings. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Leonardo Castañeda.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Supreme Court upholds the president's travel ban. How the decision will affect U.S. immigration policy. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Sunny, dry weather will be the story across San Diego County for the rest of the week. Aaron Calandra has the details in tonight's forecast.
Well, I hope you're able to get outside today and enjoy it because the weather really is great right now. We are seeing those clouds mainly along the coast in the morning, but by the afternoon, they are long gone. Lots of sunshine. It's warm on the interior areas, very comfortable along the coast. No precipitation here on this map. The whole southwest is looking dry and pleasant. It is going to be getting a little bit warm in the deserts, a couple degrees above average, but we were really cooking last week, so it's not going to be as hot as it was then, but still, it's a bit toasty out there. For tonight, 62 degrees with those thickening clouds. The marine layer is going to be pretty thick. So Oceanside, 62 degrees, San Diego at 62, and Chula Vista right around 60. The interior areas, well, Borrego Springs, 71 for the low, and Mount Laguna coming in at 59 degrees. Wednesday, it's going to be sizzling hot. We have a high pressure system in place. It's scooping up this warm air from the south, dumping it all across the southwest. Now, right along the coast, though, we are kept nice and comfortable because of that cool flow coming in off the Pacific. So really, these beach communities, going to see some A-OK weather here pretty much all week. Let's take a peek at tomorrow. Temperatures, Oceanside 76, Chula Vista 75, and Ramona coming in at 88 degrees. It's going to be in the triple digits, of course, in Borrego Springs and in Mount Laguna around 81 degrees with brilliant sunshine. Over the next several days, it will get just a bit cooler. For Friday and Saturday, we're talking the low 70s. Still sunny, though, for the coast. And the interior areas, it's going to go from the mid-80s to the upper 70s. Very comfortable conditions, and we are staying nice and dry. In the mountains, we'll drop again from the 80s to those 70s over the next several days, but it's going to be a sunny day each day of the week. And in the deserts, well, it's going to stay warm. Not quite as hot. We start off at 108 and we end around 102, and the overnight's even dipping down to the 60s. So that's going to be a nice little break here. Of course, stay hydrated. Check on the elderly neighbors, the kiddos, and the pets. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Steve, back to you.
Money from California's Cap and Trade program will be spent on firefighting. $230 million will go toward prevention and new equipment for CAL FIRE. The Cap and Trade program brought in more than $1 billion. A quarter of the money is set aside for high-speed rail. If you ever wanted to learn how to sail a ship, you may want to consider a class at California State University. Right now, the Golden Bear is in the harbor, and KPBS's Jane Heidemann takes us on a tour.
Have you ever wanted to learn how to sail a ship, maybe a carnival ship or a cargo ship? Well, you are in the classroom where students learn how to do just that. It's part of Cal Maritime Academy, and this is the Golden Bear ship.
Right over here, this is the Wildcat.
Meet Cadet Dane Krantz. He's a junior at California State University Maritime Academy.
I plan on sailing commercial vessels, probably joining a union. Maybe sailing on an oil tanker.
And learning how to sail here on the training ship Golden Bear is how he'll achieve those goals. He's one of 300 students living on board, and they are just about finished with their 2 months of training out in the open water.
It's a great career, hands-on, love being outside. I don't think I could do an office job, so I really wanted to be active and outside traveling on the ocean.
So far, students have spent their time learning how to navigate this multi-level ship through the South Pacific. They've visited Samoa, the Solomon Islands, Maui, And now San Diego, which is their final stop before heading back to Vallejo. Much of their day-to-day is spent on upkeep.
Shipping, painting, doing stuff like that, exterior work on the ship, making it look nice, then standing watches, usually like a bridge watch.
Then there's navigation, chart work, and watching the radar, most of it done from inside rooms like this.
A lot of times you could be out on a ship for 2, 3, 4 months at a time. And having a family, it would be difficult to spend a lot of time away.
While there's a lot of time spent away from home as a sailor and even student, a 6-figure starting salary upon graduation outweighs the cons for Krantz. Some students like him will go on to sail oil tankers and cargo ships, others cruise ships, all of it after gaining their sea legs aboard the Golden Bear. Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, the healing power of horses. We'll take you on to a special camp in Ramona for kids and military families. And it's Startup Week in San Diego. Entrepreneurs talk about San Diego's reputation as a tech city and how the community is growing. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.